Hey, what's up everybody? It's Ronnie from Run West Media and iMagnet Management. I wanted to give you a quick tutorial on Photoshop and how I can add logos to graphics that I find, and then we post them on social. This is a really quick tutorial. It's going to be pretty simple, but if you've never used Photoshop before, it can probably be pretty tricky. So if you ever do run across any issues or have questions, please reach out. You can find me on all of the socials at Run West Media. All right, let's get into it. So I'm going to go to Unsplash, and this is where I'm going to just kind of create, or actually I'm going to find an image that is license free. It's one of those I don't have to deal with any copyright issues. So I'm going to do a post for Run West Media. So essentially what I'm thinking of is probably like a marketing one. So you can just type in marketing, let's do marketing digital, and see what shows up. And you see there's like a laptop. I feel like I've used that one before in the past. You can kind of scroll down and see everything they have, and then you can load more, and then now it'll just kind of be an endless stream of stuff. And you're trying to just find one that kind of speaks to you. Since we're doing graphics, let's check out graphic design. And essentially we're going to make a graphic for this video and that we're going to post so that people can kind of see what I'm doing with the work that I did. So essentially if you're seeing this, you've already seen the finished product. And I'm kind of leaning towards that one that was up above with all of the graphics in there, even though that one's pretty cool. This is usually the trickiest part. You're kind of figuring out what works best for you. Actually, I'm going to go with this one just because it's visually cool. So I'm clicking the download button. It drops, if you have a Mac, it drops into your download bucket. So essentially, I'm going to bring that up. I'm going to hide this since I've already found it. And this kind of matches already my website design. I've kind of switched over, so at least the aesthetic kind of looks the same. So what we're going to do is just I'm just clicking the mouse and dragging it and trying to grab the entire image. I'm going to pull this all the way up. And then I'm going to Control or Command C and copy or edit copy. And I'm going to bring it into Photoshop. So I'm going to do a new file. If you've already done a Command C or a copy, it's essentially on your clipboard. So the one that's listed there will be the same size as whatever you've already copied so that you can just dump it in and you don't have to resize it at all. So I'm going to use the clipboard. Otherwise, you can see here I have 8.5 by 11 if I'm doing regular letter. The 1080 if I'm doing like an Instagram post where it's going to be perfectly square. But for this one, I'm just going to do the size of the image and create. And then I'm going to paste it in. And you can see it's the exact same. It fits right in. And then I'm going to open up my logo. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger. And I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to copy this. I'm going to make sure you fit everything in, because sometimes this will be there and it might cut off some of your letters. Or image or whatever you're using. So make sure that you can kind of pull all those around. Copy that. And we're going to paste it in here. So this is usually where a lot of people get stuck. And with Photoshop, it's one of those things where the more you do, the easier it kind of gets. So one of the things, as you can see here, I'm on the arrow or the move tool. And so I can click the image and move it around. The big thing too is to make sure you know about layers. I'll move this down. So right now you can see that the Run West Media layer is above layer 1. And you can switch these around, but as you'll see here, if I pull layer 1 above, it disappears. So that layer is actually on top of my logo. The logo is still there, you just can't see it. If I was to hide this, boom, there you go. There's that. But we want to have this on top, so I'm going to drag it back up. So then it's just figuring out where do you want to put it. And I'm thinking I'm going to put it up in this corner. The only thing though is it's a little big. So what you can do is just click on one of the corners, and depending on the resolution, it will kind of distort. I think after you click it off, it might actually be okay. So I'm going to click back on the arrow, and it looks all right. So now what we need to do is, I don't want any of this white. And you can see my image, my logo is pretty colorful, so it should match in with the rest of this. My only worry is if it fades in and it can't really be seen. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna click on the layer. And a lot of times too, if you have an image with a lot of stuff going on, say if you have a car or a park or something, and you're trying to put your image on there, it might not be clear, so you need to find the right space and the right area on the picture so that your logo or whatever you're putting on top of this can be seen to its fullest. So now I'm going to zoom in a little bit. And so that's the corner. I'm going to click on the magic wand tool and make sure that you're in the correct layer. And so what we're going to do is we're going to take away all the white space. And so essentially I can just click anywhere here, and you can see it kind of fills up all the spaces where there isn't text. The other thing that you'll notice, and I'll show you here, is that some of the white space that's within some of these enclosed letters won't get deleted. And essentially all I'm doing is just hitting delete. And then there you go. So now that's still kind of showed there. I'm going to click on these ones. If I hit shift, if I hold shift as I click each of these other ones, you'll see they all are highlighted. And I'm just going to hit delete and then click on and click off. And you can see it's a little distorted, but I think as I zoom out, you're not really going to notice a lot of that white edging that's there and the pixelation. If you really needed to, you can get super close and you can go through and click the erase tool. Make sure you make that smaller so it fits into just one of the pixels. And I could delete a lot of the brighter pieces so that it's less obtrusive as it's going through. And you can see it'll probably look a little smoother there. You can see we were in this area here, and now as I keep zooming out, you can see how small, like you can't even see that dot. And you can see here there's like white outlines outside of all of the letters. I'm not too concerned. I just wanted to do a simple drop. And as you pull out, like I said, this is going to be seen on Facebook or Instagram on a mobile device, so it's probably not going to be noticed as much. And so one of the other things I want to do is just kind of put a title piece across there. So we're going to use the text layer. And you can see that's super small. So that's a 10 point. Let's bring that up, let's say 250, and just see what happens. And that looks about the right size I'm looking for. And we can move this around. And so what I'm going to do is let's type in the name. So you can see this is a big, long thing. And what I want to do is figure out a way, to break that up. And so that is, I believe it's called the leading. I'm probably very wrong. And that's going to be, you can see how this, if I was able to zoom in, I'm over here in the text, how it says 18. And one of the things I've noticed, if you want it to be fairly matching, it needs to match, the leading size needs to match the text size. So I'm going to do 250 for this, and we'll see what happens. Oh, I needed to highlight this. We'll do 250, and you can see it pretty much shapes it up a little bit nicer. So now what I want to do is make this center justified. I think let's check and see how this looks as white. And so there's lots of different things that you can do with the text. If you right click and go to blending options, I think one of the cool ones that always pops up is kind of add a bevel and emboss. And I think I kind of want to do a drop shadow. See if one of these works. Not really. And so if you wanted to add like a shadow to it, one of the things that you can do is, let's duplicate this layer. And if I'm going to take off the effects, hide the other one, I'm going to highlight this and I'm going to change it to the color black. And we'll see. So one thing you can do that's kind of simple is, now that I'm turning that one back on, if I'm going to zoom in here, use the move tool, what you can do is just move it over slightly. And so I essentially have like a made layer that's going in there. You can also go and change this and add a blur to it if you wanted. So it's under filter, blur. I've been loving this, I think it's Gaussian blur, probably messing that up. And you can change this and you can see it kind of spreads that out. So I think we're going to kind of do that. That kind of gives it a little depth. The only thing though that as I'm looking at this, let's see if this works better in any other spot. Not really a fan of it there. I would put it here, but I'm not a fan of this line that's over here. I think we're just going to have to leave it up here. But what we can do is similar to what I just did with the text. I kind of want to add a lighter blur. So this one might be a more advanced trick if you have the patience to do it. But what we can do is go back and click the magic wand. We're going to hold shift and we're going to click this entire thing. I'm sure there's a simpler way. Oop, there you go. Yeah, if I was to click in the middle of this, since I'm on that one, select inverse, it should highlight everything that's there. My only worry is that these pieces are gonna, so let's click off of that again. Let's click here. I'm gonna do all of the ones that are inside, so that if I was to that, those inner pieces would end up being white and it'd be seen on the main one. So now I'm going to select the inverse. If that makes sense, it's actually doing the opposite of what I clicked on. So now if I go in to paint it, so I'm just going to paint this entire thing white. Yeah. So now I can try to add a white shadow or white blur to the background. And so this will be all of the letters. If I hadn't done clicked on the inside, that entire piece inside of the R would be covered. And now let's do this. So we're just coloring that whole thing in and clicking off. So now, once I clicked on that layer, it's kind of in the background again, but I'm going to put that blur on it again. So I'm going to filter, blur, do the Gaussian blur. I'm going to bring this down and just kind of see. Actually, let me take off that. And you can see it kind of blurs it in the background. Let's give it a little bit. I like that. So you can see it changes. At least it's supposed to give you a preview, but can't really see it on there. But I'm liking how that's looking. Let's zoom out. And that kind of takes care of some of that white overlay that's around those letters too. So that's essentially the quick and easy one. We're going to stick with that. That'll be the kind of the image that you've seen when you've clicked on this. There's lots more that you can do with this. Actually, let me add one last piece here. Let's put a border around this whole thing. Do a nice black border to kind of give it a sheen. So then the appearance, so if you leave the fill, this blank red line means that there's not going to be any fill in it, so that it's not actually going to affect your picture at all. And I can also move this all the way up to the top layer so that the border piece that's going to be there will essentially be over the top of everything else. We're just going to change this. I'm going to use black, and then I'm going to adjust this size. So let me make this the size of the screen. Now you can see how much bigger that gets. That looks good. Maybe a little bit more. Ooh, that's too much. And so I could just put in here, let's just do 75. Oops. Gotta highlight the whole thing. 75. That looks good. And the same with this one, I want to add that same bevel that we did to this, just so it looks a little different than just a plain old one. And you can see it gives it a little bit of depth, not a lot, but it's something. And so we're going to stick with that. And so you're going to export this, file, export as, and I'm just going to, so that's essentially how it looks. Actually, I'm not a big fan of it at the bottom. Let's see if I can shrink. So the depth, you can see here, let me bring this down. It looks at least a little bit better. So you can change all these settings the way that the light hits it, depending if you want a specific how it looks. You can change all these pieces going up or down, the size, bring this down. We'll stick with that. You can barely tell that there's anything going on there. I just wanted to have a darker border going around it. So now we'll export it, and that's gonna wrap up this video. Again, if you ever have any questions about using Photoshop, please reach out to me and let me know. I'm here to help. I'm not looking to sell you on anything unless you actually need some help with your business. Otherwise, I hope you guys learned something from this, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Take care.